Welcome back, guys, to the Orlando Huskies franchise. It is the off-season video of Season 5, and it will be part 1, and gonna go over re-signing and some free agency here. As the team made it to the playoffs, but ended up losing in round 1 to the Ravens, who ended up going all the way to the Super Bowl, but losing by 2 points to the Commanders. But this week we're gonna go over some player negotiations, and we have a couple of players to re-sign, a couple of big players. When with no doubt about it, Steven Stanton will get his fifth-year option accepted. And now we have a couple of big decisions to make, especially on the offensive line. Are we gonna bring back Deion Werner? We could potentially lose 3 starting offensive linemen, or 4 actually. And then our backup, Jonathan Jones, is also up here. So we're going to look, see what they want. As Daniel Fernandez, we have his backup, or Alex Stewart, waiting in the back. But a 1-year deal worth around $5 million isn't awful, and if he's willing to do that, and he isn't, a 1-year prove-it deal is fine by me. As Frank Webster, I don't know, because Frank Webster hasn't been too good. As you see, 10 sacks, 8 sacks. It's getting better, definitely, but he was a high pick in the first round a couple of seasons ago, but we will accept this 5th-year option, get him on the team for another season. Now, Wyatt Decker, he's also not asking for too much, as Randy Norton's also a free agent, so I'm gonna have to bring back at least one of them. And he was a little worse this year, but sack numbers are not terrible, and he's a player that hasn't dealt with too much injury. If he's willing to do just under 6 for 2 years, I would do that. And he's not interested in coming back, a franchise tag isn't out of the option. And David Hayes is definitely somebody I'd like to bring back, maybe on a 2-year deal, just under $5 million. And he also wants to test free agency, and he's not gonna get tagged. Taylor Kirkpatrick, I liked his role. He wasn't awful. 25 tackles, tackle for loss, had the pick. Just was expecting a tad bit more, but he wasn't a starter. He was a backup role type player. Our DB stayed healthy majority of the year, so he just didn't really come out on the field, and doesn't look like he's regressed too much either, as he's still fast, a really good man coverage corner, depending on how much he would want. And if he would do around 4.7, I'd bring him back. He's going to come back for a 1-year deal, and we're fine with that. Miles Franklin, Brandon Gibson is probably going to walk. Same with Jerry Patrick. And Willie's going to walk. Sammy Leak, we're going to re-sign. Just give him a 3-year deal, just so we don't have to worry about kicker. He's been very good for us. Now it just comes down to Deion Werner and Jonathan Jones, really. And 8 a year for Werner. He allowed 7 sacks this season, so it wasn't coming off. I guess it is a lot better than his past 2 seasons. Was a solid year for him, honestly, but 8 a year is pretty pricey. I do 7.5, and he's not interested in coming back, and that tag mark is just too expensive to put on him. So Jonathan Jones, I'd gladly bring him back for 2.5, and he's not interested. They will both probably be targeted in free agency. Miles Franklin, he's somebody who's played a lot better in the past couple of seasons. Starting to get more playing time, so has forced a fumble both season. depending on how much you want, I'd be fine with bringing him back as the backup free safety, and that looks like a fine deal to me if he would take it. And he's also gonna hit free agency. No one wants to come back. Jerry Patrick, I think we could do better. I don't see a real big need for him. He doesn't play a ton, has never showed a lot on special teams or when he's gotten playing time. So I think we're good here, except for Randy Norton. He'll come back for that. And he's out. I know I'm kind of lowballing these guys, but asking price a little bit pricey, but we're going to have to fill a lot of needs now in free agency. We have the money to do it, but we haven't really spent a ton in free agency ever. And we'd have to break out of that if that's something we'd want to do and continue to play good. As you see, Oberg, look at some of the names up here. No notable names that we remember, at least besides Oberg, maybe a couple other quarterbacks. As first, we are gonna go after David Hayes. I do want to bring him back, and I do want him for under 4. Bring him back on a 2-year deal. And now we're definitely going to have to go look at some of these offensive linemen. And Wyatt Decker has 5 offers. He's a very young and talented player. Can definitely get the asking price he wants. I don't know if this is going to be enough, and with that, it doesn't look like it. As the Raiders are number 1 for him. Would have to potentially play him a couple times a year, and might go after someone like Brian Thompson. Brian Thomas right now seems interested. That's just a lot of money for a 1-year deal, but with no center on the roster, gonna have to break out the bank for Brian. And then Randy Norton, gonna offer him around the same, if not less now, as he has no offers. And I like both of those offers right there. And Deion Werner, a couple of good tackles up here. But Werner had a solid season last year. He wants 8 a year. And a couple of these other guys are really expensive, so I'd pay 8 a year. But we're gonna try and get him for 7.5. And another position we want to look at is linebackers. We're gonna look at linebacker for the draft and free agency. Have to figure out that role for the linebackers. If they have killed us in coverage, Darrell White could see a increased role this season, and don't think corner is a need, but backup safeties are definitely a need now, as Miles Franklin and Jerry Patrick are both in free agency right now. Neither have offers. Jerry Patrick isn't a must need, but would definitely like somebody decent enough to back up Shane in case he goes down with an injury. The linebacker is going to be a priority in free agency 2. Defensive tackle is also a position, maybe a second or third string. I know Grimes just signed the extension. Pat McClendon's contract is coming up. And then backup ends either have to get addressed here in free agency or definitely in the draft. And we could definitely see Sammy Hopkins come back up CJ, and then backup left end is another position we definitely want to look at, just to ensure our players are being backed up. And we could look at the backups right now for those positions. As right now, backup left end is Alex Colvin. Definitely not good enough. DT Larry Sims is definitely good. Hasn't seen a ton of playing time. Pat McClandon, Grimes, two studs. And then Alex Gray, I guess, with backup CJ. So those are definitely two positions we want to take advantage of. And linebacker, have four solid linebackers. This was probably the last year of Miles McMillan starting. He just I don't think he's good enough. 82 tackling. He's definitely regressed as he's gotten up there in age. Only 73 zone. Him and Tavon Johnson both can the hit the bench honestly, and might come as a shocker, but I am gonna go place Tavon Johnson on the trade block. I think Tavon's getting up there in age at 29. Add him to the trade block, and we'll even do the same with Miles McMillan. I don't think anybody's gonna want McMillan, but it's definitely time to make a change at linebacker. If Von Ford or somebody we sign in free agency or draft, Darrell White is definitely gonna get more playing time. But we're gonna send the week 2 of free agency. See if anybody's up here. See if we signed anybody either. See the mock draft 4 is up. As we'll look at retirements real quick. I already took a quick peek at them. Only a center for the Broncos and the head coach for the Raiders. Only 2 retirements here in the AFC West. As the Raiders went 7-9, so it's probably a mutual decision to retire, as they wanted to move on. As Deion Werner and Brian Thomas are both signed to the Huskies now. As we'll look at some of the signings in week 1 of free agency, is the Cowboys signed 2 really good young players, or 2 really good players, not really young, but any signings in our division. The Raiders did get Wyatt Decker, so we will have to start seeing him twice a year. But that's it for the division signings. And now, Michael Wade was somebody I was looking at before. He's interested in coming here. He fits the scheme. He's fast. And I am going to do whatever it takes to get him on the Huskies, even if it is a little bit pricey at $6 million a year. But Michael Wade is definitely a player I want on the Huskies. And now it's time to go look for some backups and some key special teams players. I think Miles Franklin is good enough to remain on the team. And I think a 1-year deal would prove that. He's had an increased role. Hasn't been too good, but would definitely like to see him back. And Philip Huffman has high interest in coming to play here. Would only be a special teams backup type of role for him, but if he's willing to take on that role, I'm perfectly fine with bringing him in. And then running back is also another one, because we also did get rid of Jabari Sweet. If he's down here, don't know if we'll see him. There he is, Jabari Sweet right there, no longer with us. And so we are going to look to try and replace him. Jay Ross or Amari Hoskins is, both of them look solid. And they're both young backs. Can definitely see if they've had any playing time. Don't want fumbles, and Jay Ross, no fumbles in his career. Has 13 touchdowns and limited touches, and that's really impressive. Check out his receiving stats. Not too great as a receiver, but looked like he had a solid role there in Minnesota. Now, Amari Hoskins is coming off of a 6 touchdown season last year. Once again on limited touches. No fumbles as well for him. Receiving wise, also added another had a 9 touchdown year last year. And I think Hoskins is going to be the move for us. He's a bit faster, he's a bit stronger, changes directions better, carrying's better. I I like that. Amari Hoskins. He is a bit pricey, but sometimes you gotta pay for the speed. And he would definitely come in and make a factor that pick up that Jabari Sweet role. And now Randy Norton, I believe, still has the offer from us. He does. No one else is targeting him. Have to get a backup right tackle, as we might look to draft one. As Jonathan Jones has no interest in coming back, no offers, and I just think it's best if he goes his separate way and we go our separate way. But now backup ends is definitely someone we need. And it's really between these four players. They're all really interested in coming, and I think Win would be the best, as he is the youngest, still could develop a little bit, as he's never really had playing time. Only has 1 sack in his career, so we'll look at Beach as well. Beach had 9 tackles for loss, 5 sacks last year, and Beach looks like a solid player in his career, and I think Beach would be the move. Especially he is starting. He has a starting role in his past. He's definitely had starter experience, but a 1 year deal worth 3 million to back up Vigil. He could come in if Vigil gets hurt, and he's dealt with some injuries, so that's definitely something to look out for. And now backup right end. Think Rudy Wallace. He fits the scheme. He wants to come here. Coming off of a solid season last year in Cincinnati, and was with the Rams for a long time. Had his career high 14.5 sacks, 16 tackles for loss, 44 tackles, 3.5 sacks last year. He's not going to get as much playing time as he did there, but a backup role for us would be nice, and a 1 year deal worth 4 million. Can't really beat that. And I just want to check if I kind of forgot if we re-signed Kirkpatrick or not, and I believe we did. Yeah, I believe we did re-sign Kirkpatrick. Don't see his name up here. And receiver, David Hayes. Still, only team interested in him is us right now. We have a ton of teams, as you see. Our offer isn't the best for Michael Wade, so we're gonna have to go back into there. Same with Philip Huffman. But if Huffman doesn't sign, that's fine. We could go after somebody else. He's not too big of a worry, but Wade definitely is. So we're gonna have to give him a little bit more than what we were wanting to. See if how that offer stands out, and we're still in last place out of the 5 teams, so we're really gonna have to give him more. See if he and now we're second behind the Titans, and what we're gonna give him one last offer, 3.4 for the salary and bonus. See if that jumps us up to number 1. And the Raiders now, I don't know if that's accurate, but the Raiders are number one. We're gonna go look at other strong safeties just in case Huffman doesn't sign. These strong safeties are not the fastest. As I think Bush might be the best option if he doesn't sign. We're gonna offer him a 1 year deal worth 3.5. And we're gonna go advance to off or free agency stage 3 here. See if any of our players signed, and hopefully we got Michael Wade because he would be huge for us. Let's go look at our signings. So we got Rudy Wallace, got Philip Huffman, got Randy Norton, and Haskins. But we did not get Michael Wade. As Michael Wade ended up signing somewhere else, and see where he went. Marquise Jordan went to the Raiders. Raiders doing a whole overhaul on that offensive line, it looks like. Another offensive lineman for the Raiders. 2 centers for them in this free agency class. Kind of weird. Might move one to guard. Randy Bush, the player we just targeted, went to the Buccaneers. And then Michael Wade ended up going to the Titans on a 3-year deal with the salary at 10.2, bonus 11.2. And we weren't touching those numbers, so unfortunately we couldn't get him. He was the only linebacker we were looking at. That is very unfortunate for us. But Dylan Finney doesn't look awful. He's a little older. Could move him to middle linebacker, or Darrell White the middle linebacker. But it might be the move to draft a linebacker, as none of these guys are really standing out. Kendricks is fast, but not too high of an overall, and I think we're just gonna up David Hayes' offer a little bit. And see if we could jump the Patriots on that, and we don't. How much are they offering him? What about that offer? And it looks like we're about neck and neck on it. And let's just go make sure we get a receiver here. We're gonna just Ramon Simons back up on free agency, 2nd year in a row. Northrop up there, 98 speed. Brandon Gibson. Couple of players we've definitely played against, but Jarvis Peterson doesn't look too bad. We'll give him about the same contract that we wanted to give David Hayes. See if he'll sign our deal. Either way, it looks like we should be getting a receiver here. But we're going to sim to the free agency recap, as we've done the best we could here. Our cap space is getting a little tight with a couple of big upcoming free agents, so gotta spend wisely. But we do have some trade offers here for Tavon Johnson and McCain, who I never put up on the trade block, and I don't really want him on the trade block as he's a special teams unit and definitely could see an increased role So we're gonna go ahead and remove him from the trade block, as I definitely don't want to get rid of him. So he could definitely be taking over that starting outside linebacker role if I move Darrell White to middle linebacker. But we'll go look at the free agency recap. We got Deion Werner, Brian Thomas, Rudy Wallace, Philip Huffman, Jarvis Peterson, Miles Franklin, Elliott Beach, Randy Norton, and Amir Haskins. Didn't end up getting David Hayes back. Replace him with Jarvis Peterson. Around the same spot, size and speed. And I really like this free agency class. Got a couple of key positions, got a couple of key backups, got faster. And it doesn't look like our division rivals outside of the Raiders, who went 7-10 last season, really did anything in free agency. Maybe they've made a trade or two, but we are going to go look at offers for Tavon Johnson. And if one catches our eye for the middle linebacker, could definitely see him hit the road. But I wish I would have saw this offer before we signed Elliott Batch. But the left guard, Benjamin Wilson, is interesting. And they're adding a 6th-round pick to it as well. As who is our left guard? It is Dom Huff, who has disappointed, but Angelo Ford has also been really good. That could be a position that we look at as maybe we can make a similar trade with the Bears. See, he is their backup left guard, 75 overall. But let's see if we could get a higher draft pick, maybe a 3rd rounder. Tavon Johnson is our best middle linebacker, but see if this will go, and it won't. And I don't want a 5th or a 6th. See if we could get a 4th. If we can't, probably end up keeping Tavon. And it goes through. Tavon Johnson is off to the Bears for Wilson and a 4th-round pick. And just shoring up that offense line even more this offseason. As we've talked about getting a middle linebacker for a while, and this is the year we go out and get that game-changing linebacker. That's going to be the end of part 1 of the offseason. And I'll see y'all in the draft. Peace.